What's up, everybody? It's the Sports League podcast back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Amanda back on the show as always. And Amanda, the final week of the regular season. It's been a hell of a year, and we're finally all the way through it. What a year, huh?
Man, it was interesting. Some of the people like the narratives in the media, we thought certain teams would be front runners, they'd be, repeats of last year's Super Bowl at the top. And there are a lot of questions that have come up about various teams and various players over the season. So a lot of up and downs.
Yeah, I like it because we think that we know what's going to happen going into the season, and so often, so many times, something else happens, and it makes for we say it all the time when everyone thinks they have the league figured out, it does a 180 and is completely different. So, um, let's start it off with Saturday's games. I mean, the Steelers beating the Ravens to get into the playoffs, and doing it without Kenny Pickett. With Mason Rudolph, and Mason Rudolph improves to 3-0 as a starter. How impressed are you by the Steelers' ability to go on a run here late and find their way into the playoffs?
I mean, it's interesting because there was a lot of conversation about this team and how,
Mhm.
they weren't doing that well. And when their quarterback went down, it was going to be an issue. And Mason Rudolph really surprised me. You and I both picked the Steelers here to win with the Ravens, resting a lot of their starters. But I mean, it was a much needed win for the Steelers. I mean, 10-7 on the season and beating the Ravens has to feel good, even if, it wasn't like their A string team. But I mean, they've won their last four games at home. So the
Hmm.
Steelers are feeling pretty comfy right now.
Yeah, and the issue that sucks about this is they lose T.J. Watt in the process.
Mhm.
They would be feeling great about everything going into the playoffs, but to lose T.J. Watt, when he has a two-sack game and is the heart of the defense, that's a huge loss.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's only the grade two MCL sprain, so he should only miss about a week.
Yeah.
But I mean, hopefully they can handle their game. But going into this matchup, they're at Buffalo, and we know how well Buffalo's been playing lately. And Buffalo kind of matches the team that they're playing. Um,
Yeah.
I just I worry about the Steelers in that matchup because I have a feeling that Buffalo was the stronger team before they lost TJ Watt.
Yeah, and you need T.J. Watt for that game, especially chasing around Josh Allen. That being in Buffalo in cold weather with Bills Mafia going crazy, that's going to be an awfully tough test. And it's a great opportunity for Mason Rudolph, you know, with all eyes on him in the playoffs, matched up against Josh Allen. How do you perform, and what's you know, does he get blown out or does he keep them competitive? I tend to think they're going to get blown out, but it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, can you imagine if, he put up 35 against the Bills defense and then the decisions that the Steelers staff would have to make?
Yeah. I mean, I think they would, be very tempted to go with him into next season.
Mhm.
Now, regardless, I think you need to bring in a veteran quarterback. I don't know. The Steelers have a tough decision to make at the quarterback position, especially with how bad the offense has been all season long.
Yeah, because we've seen, backup quarterbacks come in and have, three good games and then completely fall off and show why they were at backup. Like,
Yeah.
third three games isn't that much of a challenge to pull off wins. But this game will be very telling to see if, Mason's actually just this good or if it's just kind of been beginner's luck since he started.
Yeah, and I tend to think that's the way it's going to be. I think the Bills should win this one big. I think that Mason Rudolph, much like Jake Browning, you can put together three good performances, much like Josh Dobbs,
Yeah, I was
and then
just gonna mention
eventually,
Dobbs.
yeah, and then you're going to hit that wall, and you're going to play poorly, and that's what I think is going to happen. But good for the Steelers to find a way into the playoffs, and um, you know, good for them. Mike Tomlin, another season of not finishing below below 500. So He's one
Yeah,
of the best.
that's impressive. I mean, especially with
Yeah,
what he had to work with this year and some of the things they overcame. Like shout out to Tomlin because he is, I mean, reliable.
yeah, one of the best in the entire league. But let's go to Texans Colts, which was the real matchup on Saturday night that we were looking forward to. This is basically a playoff game. The losers eliminated, and you have a chance to not only make the playoffs but even host a playoff game if you win. Um, Texans at Colts, and Texans jump out to a 14-3 lead. The Colts rally to tie the game at 17 all, and the Texans hang on to win 23-19. But the big story of this game is how it ended and coming down to that 4th and 1. What did you think of this game as a whole and the way it ended?
So, I mean, we both picked the Texans to win this one. And
Mhm.
I mean, the Texans outlasted the Colts. But it was one of those games where there were many opportunities that the Texans, tr kind of tried to give this one away almost. And it's the Texans right now are the first team since 2012, the 2012 Colts actually, to advance to the postseason with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. So I'm excited to, for that, but I think they showed a lot of weaknesses in this game.
Well, they couldn't. They This is what was frustrating me is that the Colts, and I think it's credit to the Colts and their ability to run the ball, and they can demoralize a defense at times. Just run, 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 and then they pop off a big one like we saw with Jonathan Taylor, and he was going crazy, 188 yards and a touchdown. To me, I would have ran the ball all game. I would have, that's it. I would just run, run, run. And they kind of bailed the Texans out, in my opinion, on that 4th and 1. Don't you think? I would have run the ball.
Yeah, I think I sent you the Marshawn Lynch gif and have we learned nothing? Like when it's down to the line in a game, like why are we throwing on 4th and short? Like
Yeah,
it does not make sense, especially when you have a great running back, which is the same thing that Seattle faced when they played New England in the Super Bowl. Like you know what your strengths are. That's been your strength all game. Yeah, the other team is prepared for it, but have they been able to stop you throughout the rest of the game? No. Okay, then stick with what's been working.
exactly. And you know, I would have ran the ball absolutely. I would have ran it with Jonathan Taylor. It made no sense to take Jonathan Taylor off the field for that 4th down play. And if you are going to make a quick pass to the running back, why not have it be Jonathan Taylor at the very least? Instead, they throw it to Tyler Goodson, running back 4, running back 3 at best, and he drops it. Um, you get what you're asking for in that situation, right? I was going back and forth a little bit with Torrey Holt on Twitter, and he said it was a good play call. It just wasn't executed. And I'm like, man, if I'm the Rams, I'm throwing that to Marshall Faulk. If I'm the Colts, I'm throwing that to Jonathan Taylor. And why not just run the ball? I don't understand Tyler Goodson of all people, right?
Yeah, I guess they were trying to kind of pull off a bit of a trick play, like, oh, they're not going to expect it to go to this guy. But,
Yeah,
I mean, we take Jonathan Taylor off the field, they're looking for receivers and not, Goodson. But I mean, go with what works. Like we've seen Jalen Hurts all season with the tush push. They know what's coming, and yet it's still not stoppable. Why would you not just anyway? Yeah,
yeah,
I don't understand it. And you and I were messaging back and forth this game. We talked about the Texans D really stepping up, CJ Stroud putting them up 7, talking about how great of a game it was for Nico. I mean, it's such a shame in this situation that the Colts just, handed the game off.
yeah. I'm happy because I didn't want to see Gardner Minshew in the playoffs. I didn't think this Colts is a playoff team. Uh, CJ Stroud is so much fun to watch. I mean, 75-yard touchdown on the first offensive play of the game, like just a statement to start the game for Houston. And the Colts deserved it. And in my opinion, a lot of the blame falls on the head coach, Shane Steichen, here for trying to get cute, trying to trick the defense instead of just doing what your bread and butter, doing what you're best at. And even if you're not going to run the ball, I would have had Jonathan Taylor on the field so that you could have play action and the defense would have probably oversold to stop Jonathan Taylor, right? And you could have gotten a wide open pass that way.
Yeah, definitely some questionable play calling.
Yeah, but we have to give a lot of credit to the Texans. Um, I'm still happy and confident in their defense, but most importantly, it's CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, um, and even Devin Singletary has come on pretty well. But CJ Stroud is so special for a rookie quarterback, isn't he?
He is. And, that pains me to admit as a Michigan fan, but, I'm feeling very giving right now after, last night's win. But yeah, CJ Stroud is a stud. He came into the league ready to lead the team, and he's been proving all season that, he's the guy.
I mean, we all thought it was, a good debate between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, and no one expected CJ Stroud to be as good as he's been. So it's really cool to see. And we'll see if he can keep it going in the playoffs. But a tough matchup. Browns, the number one defense in all of football, coming into Houston to take on the Texans. That's a major test for CJ Stroud. We'll see how he performs against that elite Browns defense.
Well, I mean, he missed 2 games, but despite that, he finished with 4,108 passing yards, which is the third most by any rookie quarterback in league history. So had
Yeah,
he played, one more game to make it, 6 or 15 starts for him. 16.
16.
16
Yeah.
starts. Sorry. I was trying to remember how many games were in the season now versus back then. I mean, one more game would have evened it out, but I mean, third most by a rookie quarterback. He has to be so proud of that.
Yeah, and he's very humble. He's not super cocky, and he credits his teammates. He credits the head coach. He seems to be very likable at this point in his young career. So I'm a big fan, but huge test against the Browns in the playoffs, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch too. So, um, who would have thought the Texans were going to win the division this year? We all thought it was the Jags were going to run away with it, right?
Mhm.
And if anybody, it would be the Titans. And instead, the Texans win the division. It's very cool to see.
Yeah, I'm glad you and I got on board early because we've been picking the Texans pretty accurately all season. But
Mhm.
the first couple of weeks, that is not the team I would have picked in that division.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, how about Browns Bengals? I'm sure this was the game on Sunday that you were watching the closest.
No. You and I kind of figured it would end up this way. I mean, the Browns are resting all their starters. They had locked up their postseason position. I mean, the Bengals got to end their season on a positive note. They finished, you know, over 500.
Yeah.
And, they could have just called it quits on that and just kind of gone through the motions. I mean, they weren't playing for anything more than pride, but they've showed up and they played. I mean, they ran over Cleveland's defense, 328 yards, 31 total points. Good finish for Jake Browning. And it I think it speaks well for him that he didn't, pull off the gas in this one. He was trying to prove that he was, ready for a starting position long term, and it'll be interesting what happens with him in the offseason.
Yeah, and my expert analysis going into this game was, oh, Jeff Driscoll is starting for the Browns. Give me the Bengals.
Hmm.
But Jake Browning, credit to him and the Bengals. They could, like you said, they could have easily given up on the season the moment Joe Burrow went down for the year with the injury. And Jake Browning saw an opportunity in front of him to get some starts, and he performed pretty well. He's proven himself at least a pretty reliable backup, right? So, you know, good on him for taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean it's one thing to kind of just go through the motions. Like all the Browns needed to do in this game was to get through the game. Like they
Hmm.
they didn't really need to try. They didn't really need to show up. But the Bengals, I mean, there was a couple people in that Bengals game who cared about what was going on. And it was nice to see Browning, still trying to put on a show for fans and for, his case about potentially having a solid place on a team next year.
Yeah, and you talked about what Joe Mixon was
Hmm.
running hard, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns combined. There was a quite a few guys going. You could tell were going the extra level trying to get their incentives this week, huh?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those incentives were hit this week, and it was kind of interesting watching them because you would see just like a random sack on the game, and then the defense would all get together and celebrate. And in a normal game, you don't see that. Uh,
Yeah.
like Chris Jones for the Chiefs, his celebration lasted forever. Like it was one of the longest defensive celebrations I've seen, like randomly in the middle of the game. He sacked Stick with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, which is a weird time to start celebrating anything. But you know it was a big pay bump for him, so he celebrated. So it
Yeah,
was
I
it was
like
pretty fun to watch.
Jadeveon Clowney did that in the Ravens Steelers game. I mean, 750K, that's nothing to laugh at, you know?
Yeah, I mean he needed 9 sacks, and it was funny too because he didn't even realize Clowney that strip sack counted as
Yeah.
a sack, so he just kind of like froze, and they were like, no, 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 it counts, and then he started celebrating. But their nose tackle Michael Pierce was like, that might have been a record for the longest celebration. That was so long. But I like that the team's going around supporting these guys. But, before we move into Sunday's game, let's talk about some of these other incentives that were hit. Baker Mayfield triggered a bonus by making it to the postseason. By winning
Nice.
over the Panthers, third NFC South title. He got an extra 2.5 million for making the playoffs. He also earned 600,000 for being in the top 10 in the NFL or in the top five for passing touchdowns, passing yards.
Wow.
And there's an extra 250 incentive for each playoff game that he makes it to. Doesn't even have to win them. But if the team makes it to, extra rounds, it's an extra $250,000 for him.
Yeah.
So,
I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. This is his first time he's ever won a division championship. So,
no, I'm
you
so
know,
happy for him.
Tampa Bay seems to be a really good fit for him.
Yeah, I like it. And it's interesting too, because you wouldn't expect the transition from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield to have gone so smoothly. Uh,
Hmm.
and I'm so happy he's with a team who's actually utilizing him properly.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, And then also in the NFC, we have Jordan Love, who didn't have any incentives, but he has escalators. So he can potentially get 9 million if they were to win a Super Bowl and escalations coming into next year's contract. But by leading the team into the playoffs, they can increase his base salary for next year by as much as 4 million now. Um, and then let's see. If they win a playoff game, he gets another 500,000 bump. A win in the NFC Championship game would be worth 1 million, and another 1 million would come with a Super Bowl win, which, we'll see. And then we talked about Joe Mixon and, Chris Jones. Oh, did we talk about Joe Mixon? I don't think
Uh,
we did. He did the
no,
make it rain after he scored his second touchdown. It was his 12th of the season, so that was $350,000.
nice.
He would have gotten an extra 250,000 if he reached 1,100 rushing yards, but he was 66 yards short, which was a big ask in that game. He had a great game, but that was a big number to hit.
Yeah,
And then
yes, yeah.
what was funny about the Chris Jones one that I started talking about is Andy Reid wanted to pull him out of the game. And he went over and begged him. He was like, no, one more series. I had to go over and beg him. And Andy Reid put up the finger like, one more and you're done. So he went onto the field. He said, I went onto the field praying to God, like, oh my God, please. But he owes Andy Reid a couple cheeseburgers now, apparently. But he said he was going to buy the whole D line some fancy watches. So, I think Andy Reid might be getting one too.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. It's nice when you see the head coach you know, give some slack and kind of, help out his players once in a while like that.
Yeah.
It's risky, but it's risky like the Lions with Sam Laporta, right?
That was tough to watch.
Speaking of that, Vikings Lions in Detroit, the Lions. I don't understand this. I didn't understand it going in. We talked about it on our preview about how it was risky, in my opinion, in our opinion, for the Lions to be playing their starters with not a lot to gain. You needed both the Cowboys and the Eagles to lose and a win to get to the 2 seed. That was very unlikely. And I just would have rested the starters. And the Lions got kind of beat up in this game. You see Sam Laporta with a very scary knee injury. Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down at one point. Brian Branch leaves the game at one point. Um, Khalif Raymond as well. Like, do you think it was worth it for the Lions to play their starters? I would have rested them.
I mean, we have talked all season about how Dan Campbell, is so intent on showing how ballsy he is and how aggressive he is in his play calling. I mean, we talk about how many times a game he turns over on downs and he goes for it on 4 and 6 and 4 and 5. And I mean, we've had an issue with him being a little brash all season.
Mm-hmm.
This was just another situation. I mean, you already made the postseason. There was a sliver of hope that they could, clinch the 2 seed, and he played his starters for the entire game.
Yeah.
So I mean, Goff got to play well. The Vikings defense couldn't really control Goff. They had a good game. They won the game. Goff put up 320 yards. Amon-Ra had a beautiful 70-yard pass, and then the Lions become the first team with two rookies to hit 1,000 yards. Like it was a cool game for them, but I mean, at what cost?
Mm-hmm. Well, and they're hopeful that Sam Laporta will be able to play against the Rams, but at what percent, right? He's not going to be 100%. So, yeah, he might be able to play, but, you know, I mean, that's the risk that goes along with it. And Sam Laporta is a huge part of their offense. So,
Yeah, and they say it's essentially the same injury that Kelsey had in week 1. And he missed a week with that one. So hopefully it's just a 1 week situation if he does need to miss time. But I mean, that sucks. Like he is a huge, huge component to that team.
for a team that hasn't won a playoff game since 1991, that is very huge. You need all hands on deck. That's why I would have rested everybody because I don't care about the 2 seed. I
Yeah,
care about
you got the playoff
one,
spot. That's good enough.
yeah, a home playoff game and an opportunity to win that home playoff game. I mean, and it doesn't get any easier for the Lions as the matchup we all want to see. Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, and the Rams versus Jared Goff, Dan Campbell, and the Lions. The Lions' first home playoff game in forever. And guess who's coming into town? Matthew Stafford. This is going to be so cool.
Yeah, I'm stoked about this matchup. And Goff is riding high right now. He got a one of his little escalators. He bumped up 300,000 for next year's contract, and he's got another 945,000 for next year if they win the Super Bowl or if he's named Super Bowl MVP. So Goff is playing for something here. So I'm excited to see this matchup. I know that you are pulling for the Rams in that matchup, but I might be Team Lions. We'll have to sort that out on the next episode.
I wouldn't say I'm very confident in the Rams. I just feel like Goff is going to be very emotional, in my opinion,
Mhm.
because I mean, we can talk about this on another episode, but going up against McVay, the guy who gave up on him, going
Yeah.
up against Stafford, the trade was Stafford for Goff, and Stafford's proven he's a Super Bowl MVP, right? And so with I just Stafford going back to Ford Field, I just feel like Stafford's going to put up massive numbers in that game, and I could be
Yeah.
wrong, but it's to me that's worst case scenario for the Lions is the Rams coming in. Like if it was Green Bay, I would feel more confident. The Rams, the Rams are coming in with a chip on their shoulder
Yeah.
and secretly, like on the low, playing some pretty good football, as we'll talk about later. But so that's the most interesting playoff game, in my opinion, of the entire weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting matchup for sure. But I just need to do a quick shout out for Goff here. So he hit his personal incentives, but what's cool is receiver Josh Reynolds needed 36 yards to reach his 600, which was a $250,000 bonus. He had only 10 yards going into the final possession of the game. So, they were up. Goff threw 4 straight passes to him. I mean, he said it was important for us to try to get him that number to get his incentives. And we were trying like hell all day to get it to him. It just wasn't connecting there at the end, and we kind of had to force it in some ways. I mean, he got his numbers, but that's good looking out by a quarterback to like force force the ball to someone just so they can hit their bonus. So
Yeah,
I mean, I
and
have a lot of respect for him for, how he treats his teammates and the way he looks out for them. But I'm not entirely sure who's gonna pull off the win in that one.
yeah, that's going to be interesting. And both Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds were teammates on the Rams, and I think Goff was a big reason why the Lions brought in Josh Reynolds, and so they've got some history there. So nice to see him help him get those incentives, and then storylines galore going into that playoff game. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. Can't wait.
How about this game? And we talked about this in our preview about how it was going to be a little bit scary going into Tennessee, Jags at Titans, with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill likely playing their last games of the Titans. I mean, what were you thinking watching this game?
So, I mean, I thought the Jags would pull it off. I
Me
have a
too.
lot of I have a lot of respect um for Trevor Lawrence and his ability to, overcome and play despite his injuries. I figured it would be a close, scrappy game. But shout out to the Titans. Those those players were trying to put on a show before they, went into free agency. And like DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he and
Hmm.
Ryan Tannehill both knew. I mean, Tannehill even said, I was very aware of where Hopkins was with his numbers. I thought we were actually a couple of yards short. I told him, hey, I'm going to get you this ball. I don't care what they call. I'm going to get you this ball. Like he knew he's coming into free agency. He doesn't care like what's happening, but he helped Hopkins reach his 250,000 incentive for 75 catches and 1,050 yards and 8 touchdowns. So
Nice.
as soon as he reached that marker, he said, thankfully, I didn't have to go rogue there, call a pass play at the end. I've got nothing to lose here though. I'm out anyway, so what are they gonna do? So,
Yeah.
I'm glad they went out on top. Because it's tough when your last game with a team that you've, put a lot of effort into is a loss. So I'm glad they pulled off the win here for them. But man, when we were coming from November into December, the Jags were 8-3, half a game behind the Ravens and the Dolphins for, one seed in the AFC. They had a 96% chance at making the playoffs.
Yeah.
A month later, they're out of the playoffs. They're eliminated.
Yeah. The bottom fell out, and I think part of it. I mean, obviously, Trevor Lawrence got banged up, right? He was dealing with injuries every week, and almost every week he was questionable to if he was going to be able to play or not. Even to the point where C.J. Beathard started a game and ended Trevor Lawrence's long streak of consecutive starts. It goes back to that Bengals game. Remember Jake Browning, Bengals against the Jags? I think it was a Thursday night game.
Yep.
Um, and a game the Jags, we all thought were going to win, and then he gets hurt. And
Browning
it's
put on a show.
yeah, and the Jags just fell apart. And I don't see. I know injuries played a role. They weren't playing their best ball at times. Trevor Lawrence struggled at times, but I don't see how Doug Peterson can't escape a lot of the blame for this too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he said after the game, I think today's game is our season in a nutshell. Like, what does that mean? Like, if your quarterback isn't healthy enough to pull through and win a game and he's struggling, stop starting him.
Yeah.
Find something else that's going to work. Run the ball more. I mean, they were down 8 with 7 minutes left, and Trevor Lawrence called an audible, at the line of scrimmage, fourth and goal from the Titans 2 yard line, and they were short. Like, there are so many miscommunications and issues with the play design in this game. I mean, they seem desperate. And luckily Lawrence understands like if you do it, you better score, and I didn't, so it's unfortunate, is what he said about it. But like you give your quarterback so much freedom to decide if he's up for playing in a game when he's clearly not at his, not at 100. And
Hmm.
let him call audibles and stuff, and he's not playing to his capabilities because he's injured. It's up to the coaching staff to make him sit out of games if he's not able to play.
Yeah, and it was a tough spot for Doug Peterson to be in because Trevor Lawrence definitely gives you the best chance to win over C.J. Beathard, but at the same time, It's just an accumulation of things, and it's a terrible season for Jacksonville, and
Mhm.
they go and they fire pretty much everybody but Doug Peterson. They fire the defensive coordinator, they fire a bunch of assistants, but Doug Peterson gets to stay, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on them going into next season. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of changes. But to be 8-3 and have a collapse like that is really a bad look. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be intrigued to see what they do, with Lawrence when he's healthy next year. But I mean, a lot of this game can be blamed on Lawrence. I mean, at the end there, they had a chance to come back. He overthrew Evan Ingram on a 4th and 2, just overthrew him.
Yeah,
So I mean that's on Lawrence. Like they could have come back and tied it with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion there, but I mean it's not his fault that he's in the game when he's injured. That's up to coaching staff.
yeah,
And it's interesting that they're doing everything except for firing Doug Peterson.
yeah. It definitely is interesting, and they're like, we're gonna make
Scapegoating going on.
everyone else the fall guy except for the star quarterback and the big name head coach.
Yep.
So we'll see if it works out. But there's going to be a lot of focus, a lot of eyes on the Jags this offseason to see what moves, what hires they make, and what moves they make to that roster. You know, shore up that offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence better, get him some more weapons, shore up the defense. There's going to be a spotlight on it all offseason long.
And a quick shout out to Derrick Henry. I mean, he had an amazing performance in this game.
Yeah,
153 rushing yards, touchdown, 19 carries. I mean, we've seen some rougher games out of him this season, but I mean, this is the Derrick Henry that we know and remember. He had a 69-yard run in the third quarter. I mean, definitely a solid throwback game for him. So if this is officially it for him there, he will finish with the franchise second all-time leading rusher with 9,500 yards and leader in rushing touchdowns at 90.
yeah.
So definitely a great punctuation on the end of his career there if that's officially it for him.
And he's still a monster, as we saw in this game, as we saw it in times this season, and on a bad team. So I would love to see him go to a veteran or a contending team with a lot of talent, and he's still got gas left in the tank. So I'm excited to see where Derrick Henry ends up. The same thing with DeAndre Hopkins is still a very good receiver
Hmm.
uh, on the right team, and then how about the Titans firing head coach Mike Vrabel today? Um, a bit surprising, right? And he's going to be one of the most sought after head coaches. Maybe he goes to New England if they move on from Bill Belichick. But Vrabel was not the issue in Tennessee. Kind of an interesting move here.
Yeah, it seemed kind of abrupt. Um,
Yeah,
I feel like they needed another year to sort out some of their, young players on the team and kind of get everyone like enmeshed together. It seemed very sudden. I wonder if there was some personality clashes or something behind the scenes that we weren't privy to. But yeah, I was surprised by that one.
they were. Mike Vrabel was unhappy about the AJ Brown trade
Hmm.
when they traded him to the Eagles. I know that he was very publicly unhappy about that. So there could have been a clash with ownership. They brought in a different GM, so that shouldn't be the issue. But um, I think the Titans are heading for a complete rebuild. They're going to build around Will Levis and Tajay Sharp and Traylon Burks, right? And just go young across the board. And so I think they're feeling like, let's get a young, up and coming offensive type quarterback guru head coach, analytics, maybe Ben Johnson or something like that. And Vrabel, will be highly sought after and go to a team that he can get them back in playoff contention. So I'm excited to see where Vrabel ends up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He definitely has more of kind of an old school approach to the game. So I could see with, a more analytics focused future, he wouldn't be a good fit there, but I'm sure somebody will snatch him up real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And a team that a lot of people are talking about is the Patriots. And snowy game in Foxborough, we both expected the Patriots to send Bill Belichick off on a high note, but instead it was the Jets doing snow angels in the end zone in a 17-3 win. Did you watch any of this game? Not the most entertaining one for sure.
So I have my TV on a 3-game split during games, and the 3-year-old wanders in. He's like, "Mommy, snowing!" So I had to put that game on because he was real stoked about the snow. But I mean, we love a good snow game, right? And
Mhm.
the Jets snapped their 15-game losing streak to the Patriots, which I did not see ending. I thought, Zappy would, show up finally and try to pull off a win for Belichick in his potential last game, but man, it was rough for the Pats. I mean, 17-3.
Yeah,
What a,
and
what a shitty season for them. I
yeah,
mean,
4-13. Who would have thought?
talk about going out with a bang. They went out with like a silent gasp. Like just it was rough.
And all eyes are going to be on the draft. The Patriots clinched the third overall pick. And are they the type of team that trades up with the Bears at number one to go get a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, or do they draft Jaden Daniels? Which direction do they go? Michael Penix. But the Patriots are in desperate need of a quarterback, and we talk about it all the time. How if you miss on a first round quarterback like Mac Jones or Daniel Jones, it sets your franchise back, and you have to hit on that quarterback. That's why the Panthers fans are worried about Bryce Young. You have to hit on that quarterback. So we'll
Yeah,
see what the Patriots do.
it'll be interesting. One bright spot in this game, Breece Hall for the Jets. Their
Yep.
entire offense was Breece Hall. Hall in the left, Hall in the middle, Hall in the right. Like that was it. And the Pats didn't seem to care. I mean, second year back, he ended this year with 37 carries, 178 rushing yards. Mind you, every Patriots player combined had 176 total. So he outrushed the entire opposing team. Those were both career highs for him, and he, finished the game with a 50-yard touchdown. So, I mean, tossing his two catches, I mean, 190 yards for Breece Hall, and the Patriots could not figure out how to stop him. That is a rough game for that Patriots defense.
You maybe Brees Hall just loves the snow, right? And he came out ready to go.
He's a
The
little kid on a snow day.
Yeah, the Patriots defense had been playing pretty good football coming in, so that was their one strong point, and to get just
Yeah.
destroyed like that is crazy.
It seemed like they had woken up. Like I had some hopes for the Pats having a good game here, and my God, were we absolutely dead wrong.
Yeah, and football is meant to be played outside in the cold and the snow like this. There's a lot of push and a lot of talk from certain members of media and analytics people, and like, oh, every game should be played in the dome. Like cold, bad weather hurts the brand of football, and I disagree strongly. I love a snow game, a cold game where you can see the breath of the
Hmm.
players, a downpour of rain. I love it all.
Yeah, I love those outdoor games. I mean, those are classics. Like the Ice Bowl, like I
You
love.
said you said the Packers should move to a dome.
I would never.
Well,
Look, I
I would
keep
never say that, but we got Bears fans all over the place talking about, no, it's not the 1950s anymore. We need to play in a dome. It's like,
ugh,
what the hell is wrong with these people?
this is why the Bears are gonna get moved out of Chicago to the
Seriously.
suburbs. I mean, good God.
Well, like I said, if Justin Fields and Jim Harbaugh go to Atlanta, I might be cheering for a dome team. And speaking of the Falcons, they had a chance to potentially win the division, sneak into the playoffs, and they get beat 48-17. A statement. The Saints have been so up and down all season long. They put up 48 points, and it's still not enough to get into the playoffs.
So what's so funny about this one is it should have only been 41 points if you ask Arthur Smith. So, the Saints are up 41-17, and they should have technically like probably taken a knee, but the leader in rushing touchdowns last season had yet to score a touchdown this season.
Yeah.
And the boys pulled together and they wanted him to get his touchdowns. So they went behind coach's back after being told to take a knee. And Jameis Winston was like, no, we're gonna give him the ball, we're gonna let him score. And I think that's sweet. However, players have been suspended for games for less, Jameis. So, a little naughty on his part. So I'll be intrigued to see. I haven't seen any interviews about how Dennis Allen felt about that.
Well, he said he threw the players under the bus and said that he didn't call that he said to kneel it. But
Yeah.
hearing from other players on Twitter and as much as I have, I'm surprised by the amount of times that these players are saying that they just disregard what the coach calls, the play call, and they do whatever they want. And they all say if the huddle, everyone in the huddle decides to do something else, then they do it. It's it's about the players on the field.
Yeah,
And
I mean, call the audible and go for it. What's funniest to me is Arthur Smith yelled at Dennis Allen about this.
yeah,
Like instead of, stopping the play and stopping them
exactly.
from scoring, which is the entire job of a defense. Like half of your
Yeah,
team's job is to stop the other team from scoring. Instead of, making his team do what they're supposed to do, he got pissed at the other team for scoring on them and then got
yeah.
fired.
And that's why it always falls on deaf ears to me. Is like
So
what
funny.
you're upset that your defense gave up damn near 50 points. Well, tell your defense to do their job, right? Like
Let's not
if
do that then.
yeah, the entire goal of the offense is to score points, and if you can't stop them, score points, right? And Arthur Smith is all upset, and then he gets fired. I mean, why are you upset about 48 and not upset about 41, right?
Yeah, that's insane to me. Like, why would you be upset that the other team is scoring more instead of upset that your team isn't stopping them from scoring?
Yeah, with the playoffs on the line. Like, so I could care less what Arthur Smith thinks, and he's now looking for a job. And I support the Saints players here. It might look bad. The media wants to go at him for it, but Jamal Williams, they wanted to get him a touchdown, so be it. Like,
Yeah, they pulled together to do something nice to one of their teammates. Like that's so good for morale.
yeah.
And good for them. And I mean, f for the Falcons, while their defense didn't really show up in this game, Calais Campbell, he made 500,000 in his incentives for finishing the season with more than 5 sacks. He had 6.5, and another 500,000 for playing 63% of their defensive snaps. He left 500,000 on the table for not reaching 8 sacks. So if he had an extra 1.5 in this game, that would have been another $500,000. But like we said, their defense wasn't doing much of anything. So
He is one of those guys. He just keeps playing and playing and playing and at a high level all the time. Like Calais Campbell is amazing. He was drafted all the way back in 2008, same year as Joe Flacco, and
yeah.
still getting it done.
I
So
like these reliable old guys in here, still chugging
yeah,
along,
yeah. And then
punching the time clock every day.
to me, for the Falcons, the thing to keep an eye on this offseason is the quarterback position. And Desmond Ritter, he's been benched like so many times. He doesn't seem to be the guy. Taylor Henneke, he's a backup quarterback in this league. If the Bears don't keep Justin Fields, to me, that the Falcons seem like the perfect fit for Justin Fields. Imagine Fields in that backfield with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and then you got Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Like that would be tough to stop.
Yeah, and honestly, Ritter looked like he was gonna have a good game. I mean, he played a perfect first half. He completed 14 of 16 passes, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was more yards than he'd thrown for in 11 of his first 16 NFL starts. It was a tie
Mm-hmm.
game at halftime. I mean, he showed up. Third play of the second half, though, it went to shit. He threw that bad interception, immediate Saints touchdown. He was picked again on the following series, and then it just went completely downhill real quick. So yeah, if you tuned in at the half and then turned this game off and went to take your dog for a walk and came back, you would have been greatly confused.
Yeah, the Falcons were competitive at first. They were up 14-7, and but they got away from them in the second half, and turnovers were key. And the biggest thing at that quarterback position is consistency, and the Falcons haven't had that all season long. So
No,
we'll
and
see.
it'll be telling to see what happens, but I hope Chicago surprises us all and makes the right decision to keep Justin Fields because
Yeah,
he deserves their respect after all the effort he's put in.
yeah, and I think Chicago's gonna surprise us all and do the opposite of what we think they should do, which is probably draft another quarterback and keep Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy, right? Like,
And by
I
surprise us all, you mean not surprise us whatsoever because Chicago likes to their their focus every year is, oh, we can't win games, let's replace the quarterback. I mean,
yeah,
talk about how many starting quarterbacks Chicago has busted through in the past 20 years. Like,
yeah,
obviously, the quarterback position isn't your biggest issue.
yeah, and we'll talk about this coming up, but the Bears are not without talent this year, especially. And in a game against the Packers where that was an opportunity to really establish yourself and play a big game in Lambeau. Every time the Bears play the Packers, they get thoroughly outcoached. And I don't see how any franchise can look at that game and say, hey, let's bring back that coaching staff. I think it's a complete joke. And like I said, me supporting the Bears is hanging by a literal thread. And if Fields is gone and Harbaugh's not in town, I might be a free agent this offseason. So, um,
Well, you and
and
Tannehill can look for new teams together.
yeah, I mean, let's real quick talk about. We'll get to Bears Packers
I was
next, but
gonna say
let's talk.
let's talk Bucks Panthers real quick before Alex goes too far down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and Bucks Panthers, should have been an opportunity. It's a tough game, right? But Carolina's so bad, the Bucks should be able to run away with this one, and they weren't able to. They only win 9-0, but at least that's enough to clinch the division and host a playoff game. But the Bucks aren't exactly hitting on all cylinders going into the playoffs, are they?
No, but they're one of those teams that we have seen, they just match whatever energy their opponent's giving.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't have turnovers in this game. It was all punts. And Carolina's defense actually did show up here. The defense had a pretty good game, but I mean, Carolina started the game, you know, with just I mean, punt, fumble. I mean, they had what, two fumbles and a missed field goal. So obviously Carolina wasn't doing anything here, but the Bucks, I feel like they just felt that they didn't have to do much to win this one, so they
Yeah.
just didn't do much.
Yeah, and at least the Bucks defense showed up too, right? And we've had concerns about Tampa Bay's defense throughout the season, and at least they did enough to keep Carolina scoreless, and then you don't have to put up a ton of points if you hold Carolina to 0.
Yeah, I mean, a game with 12 punts, though, good God. I had no
Yeah,
intention of putting this one on. Like, it came on
I,
Red Zone, I think, twice, and that was
I
it.
had it on, but it was background, like it was one of the screens that I was keeping an eye on, but as it got further and further in, it was like, yeah, Tampa Bay's got this one, and I don't want to watch it, so let me watch something better.
Yeah, I hope that the Bucks are really just, only matching their opponent's energy and that we see more from them in the postseason. Because I would love for the Bucks to be able to, have the Eagles matchup and pull off a win. I would love to see that. However, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about them. And I'm hoping it's just a case of matching their opponent's energy. I mean, they clinched their third straight NFC South title. Granted, it doesn't ever really seem like anyone wants to win that division, so I'm not that impressed. But I love Baker Mayfield and I would love to root for the Bucks, but I need to see a bit more than 9 points.
Yeah, you're gonna need to score more than 9 points in the playoffs, but honestly, the Bucks should be happy with who they get to play at home against a team that's just absolutely reeling right now.
Yeah, but let's take
And
a quick second to talk about Baker's injuries. I mean, he came into this with a rib injury. He, wanted to play through it. He wasn't going to be kept off the field if he could have any say in it. And then, he was limping half the game. He took a pretty hard sack in the first half, bummed his ankle out, and then he was limping and playing pretty poorly. Do we think that injury is going to continue to nag him into the postseason?
it could, but the thing that I understand why you like Baker so much is because he looks like Brett Favre in that regard, where it doesn't matter if he's hurt, he's going to give it his all. And you have to love that. Any team, any fan base would love a quarterback like that because quarterbacks are going to get beat up throughout the season. I mean, this year especially, the year of the backup quarterback, and Baker has gutted through so many injuries, and it was a perfect excuse, right, for Baker to be like, "Well, I'm hurt, and I'm too banged up to lead my team to the playoffs." That's what happened with Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. Yet Baker got it done, right?
Yeah, and I'm proud of him. I mean, he came into the Bucks this season, and there was a whole conversation about, was it Kyle Trask or is it going to be Baker? And he has
Hmm.
earned that starting position. And after what he's gone through on his previous teams, I'm just really proud of him.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no reason, honestly, why the Bucks can't win a playoff game. Like that matchup is in their favor, and I'm gonna be rooting for them because I don't trust Philly at all. I don't know why anyone would going into this matchup. So Tampa Bay, they get the home playoff game, they get a division championship, and they're gonna be ready to go, right? Baker's never had a home playoff game. He's got a lot of weapons around him. It's a big opportunity that they're going to be ready to go. So I think that's going to be a fun playoff game on Monday night too.
Yeah, and just real quick, I want to shout out the Carolina Panthers. They are the first team in NFL history to have an entire season without holding a fourth quarter lead. So, setting records all over the place, Carolina. Good work.
2-15, and I'm surprised we didn't see David Tepper throwing his drink at some of the home fans in this one.
Oh my goodness.
Um, but it looks like he threw his drink at the GM as they fired Scott Fitterer.
Ugh.
So
Yeah, because he was the problem. Hmm.
yeah, I mean he needs to throw a drink at himself and sell the team. But we'll see. I mean they need to get a head coach in there. They're looking at Lions OC Ben Johnson, but they're going to be doing their due diligence. Maybe they'll hire, go hire Hugh Jackson. He'll get the most out of Bryce Young, but they need to hire someone to turn that quarterback and that offense around as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, oof, rough season for them. Um,
Absolutely.
just real quick, I want to shout out Chris Godwin had 51 yards in this game, pushed him over 1,000 receiving yards on the season. So he and Mike Evans, both receivers with 1,000 plus receiving yards. They're the eighth teammate duo in NFL history to have over 1,000 yards in three or more consecutive seasons. So they've done it 2019, 2021, 2022, and this year. So
Nice.
an amazing duo in the receiving slot for them. That team is getting a little spoiled with their receivers, but what a great season for them.
Absolutely. Two monsters and very reliable. And that's going to be a fun duo to watch in the playoffs. Let's go to Bears Packers. My team versus your team. We love this rivalry. These games are always a lot of fun. The Bears trying to snap a 9-game losing streak against Green Bay and hadn't won in Lambeau since 2015. And this was a competitive game. I mean, it was 7-6 at halftime, low scoring, hard fought. But the Packers pull away and win 17-9. Really, to me, the key was Aaron Jones, and the key for Green Bay's success since coming back has been Aaron Jones. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's the first Packer since Amon Green in '06 to register three consecutive 100-yard rushing games. I mean, he's been
Mm-hmm.
insane. Like he and Love in this game. I mean, Aaron Jones leads the league in rushing yards since week 15. Love had an amazing game. I mean, 27 of 32, 316 yards. I mean, 32 touchdowns on the season. He finished his final eight regular season games with only four turnovers, and only
Yeah,
one of those was an interception. Like he is really finding his stride, and some of his throws, I mean, you mentioned Baker Mayfield reminded me of Brett Favre with his, dedication to playing and playing through injuries. Some of his throws, he looks like Brett Favre. The way he throws kind of sidearm with both of his feet off the ground.
Yeah, fade away with some touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to like superimpose a video of Brett Favre throwing with Jordan Love because it feels familiar, and it took me a minute to figure out why. But this is the youngest team in NFL history to make the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, his two top leading receivers are both rookies, Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks. And Wicks was going crazy in this game. And I just want to shout out the Bears, talking about potentially bringing Matt Eberflus back. And the talk going into this game was the Bears defense has been playing so much better and leads the NFL in interceptions. Where was the Bears defense in this game? They were sitting back in this zone ass defense with letting Packers receivers get wide ass open. Like on crucial third downs, they're in a zone and just allow a receiver to run to the open spot and have a easy catch. Like I don't understand. And the Bears were getting dominated in the trenches on both sides, and it's not like Green Bay's defense has been dominant this year. Like incredibly frustrating as a Bears fan, and thoroughly outcoached. And a Joe Barry of all people outcoaching Matt Eberflus. Like what the fuck?
So you and I had talked about this game going into it about how losing it for either team would help get rid of the coaching staff we want to get rid of. But my God, if Joe Barry hasn't, fell in the hot seat the past 2 weeks and stepped up with the defense, I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
nervous we're going to keep him now because he's had two great games in a row with that defense. So I'm getting kind of concerned here.
Yeah, and if you do that against Dak Prescott and CD Lamb, you're
Shit,
definitely
we're stuck
keeping
with
Joe
him for
Barry.
another year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe all the hate really, made him concerned for his job and he's a changed man. But we have yet to see that. So I'll be intrigued to see how that plays out. But circling back to incentives, your kicker, I know you loved Robbie Gold. But Cairo
Mm-hmm.
Santos has been pretty solid for the Bears. He made $500,000 for converting more than 90% of his field goal attempts. He finished with a 92% success rate. 35 field goals set the single season franchise record. So the Bears are doing solid in the kicker position yet again. While on the other side of the ball, Anders Carlson, freaking Christ, he has missed a field goal or an extra point in 8 out of his past 10 games.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law messages me at least once a week. You missed a Mason Crosby yet? You missed a Mason Crosby? Yes, I'm missing fucking Mason Crosby, okay? God, it's been rough. So at least you guys have a kicker, I guess.
Hey, you could have signed Robbie Gold, but no, Anders Carlson is the savior. So,
Ugh, God. It's cute
um,
that he and his brother are both kickers. That's adorable. But can you make field goals, please, for the love of God?
he's a kicker. What do you want from him? Like, what you expect a kicker to make field goals? Come on, your expectations are way too high, Amanda.
Listen up, double doink, okay? I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, the Bears are
Actually,
like,
wait, no,
hey,
there was a
we're
doink.
the Bears suck, and we're gonna have the best kicker we've had since Robbie Gold. But when the Bears are contenders, we're gonna have Cody fucking Parkey, who can't even make a 42-yarder. So
Is
Bears, everything the Bears do is ass backwards.
is that the
But
Packers karma right now? We're on a hot streak, so our kicker starts going to shit.
well, and this is a big game. Packers at Cowboys in the playoffs here in the wild card. That's going to be a fun one. I think that's going to be competitive. Jordan Love's playing on fire. Aaron Jones is playing well. Your young receivers are balling. If the defense cannot let Dallas put up 40 something, right? If the defense can at least show up, the Packers can put up points. I think it should be competitive.
So what's interesting in this game is I didn't even notice this, but Dak Prescott is the league passing leader with
Mm-hmm.
36 touchdowns. Jordan Love is second with 32.
Well,
I didn't know he was in second. I just stumbled across it randomly today. So this matchup of the playoff game is the first time in NFL history that the top two touchdown pass leaders will face off in the playoff opener.
yeah.
Because normally, like the touchdown passing leaders have a first week bye. But yeah, they just both kind of snuck in with those numbers and they play this weekend. It's the first time in history that that's happened. And I am like pleasantly surprised by this Packers team. I mean,
Hmm.
there's only been one team in NFL history as young as this team. They were the 2017 Browns who went 0 and 16. And we're in the postseason. Like it's mind-boggling to me how far this team has come in a year.
Yeah. No, I mean, Jordan Love getting it done, and I love Jay Reed. Spartan
Mhm.
Dog, Dontavian Wicks. I liked in the draft.
Montavian Wicks, I
Yeah.
was not a huge fan of his first couple games, but I'm starting to trust him. And it wasn't that I, had anything against him. I just wasn't ready to trust anyone else yet. Like we got super lucky with Jaden Reed being good. Christian Watson is great. Like we're gonna get a third good receiver. Like no, like something will go wrong. I just kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I hope they keep it up because unfortunately for me, they are making me hopeful. And that's, gonna come back and bite me in the ass very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, but being hopeful and having your hopes dashed is better than having no hope at all. And my Bears, I have no hope. I've been waiting. I tweeted it today. I said, Bears, break the news that Luke Getzey and Matt Eberflus have been fired, and nothing all day. So the Bears are just sitting on their hands. Everything's just fine. We're knocked out of we're not in the playoffs. We suck. Uh, and Jim Harbaugh, shout out to your Michigan Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh wins a national
It
championship last night,
was beautiful.
and everyone knows that he's going to the NFL or likely to. This is your opportunity, Bears. Build around Justin Fields, draft Marvin Harrison Jr., and go hire Jim Harbaugh. And if the Bears don't do it, they have only themselves to blame. He wants to coach in Chicago, but the Bears are like, no, we're smarter than or we're too smart for our own good or too dumb for our own good or whatever. But whoever hires Jim Harbaugh, he's the hottest name in coaching right now. He's
Mhm.
gonna get a 100 mil, 125 mil, maybe 150 mil wherever he signs, and hopefully it's Chicago. But shout out Jim Harbaugh in Michigan.
Yeah, it was a great natty. I was worried it would be closer, and then they started running away with it. And obviously, everyone is talking about, a couple missed holding calls against Michigan. But I'm sorry, did did those missed holding calls stop your defense from preventing Michigan from putting up 300 rushing yards? Like,
No, I mean people a lot of times people reach and try to blame officiating. I didn't see anything that stood out. Like that's nothing affected the outcome of the game. There was bad calls going both ways at times. It was fine.
yeah, I mean, I saw, maybe one or two. Like, even if they'd gotten one more touchdown, they lost by 21. It wasn't a 3-point game. Like, that wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game. But let's circle back to your thing here. So we've talked about the Chicago Bears defense improving the past couple weeks. Makes me nervous that you guys are going to keep Eberflus. But Luke Getsy, I mean,
Trash.
so bad. Like,
Yeah.
how are you going to ask 165-pound Trent Taylor to block Rashawn Gary, who is just shy of 300 pounds?
Yeah, and what was
Like,
that play call? Where was that going?
it was so bad.
Yeah. And
Like,
how many
you want him to
screens?
get killed?
Yeah, how many screens are we going to call? What was the game plan? It was the most vanilla ass game plan. Run, run, screen, run, run, screen. Like, what are we doing? There was nothing to get Justin Fields out in space. There was no imagination. We got thoroughly outcoached on both sides of the ball.
Like, Ryan Poles got some points for, landing the number one overall pick, bringing Montez Sweat into town,
DJ
but
Moore, yeah.
DJ Moore, like, none of that credit should still count for him either. Like oh my God. The combination of this coaching staff just makes me sick. Some of these decisions are just absolutely asinine and dangerous. They put some of their players at such a high risk by putting them in situations where they're completely outmatched.
Yep. And when you don't learn from your mistakes, regime after regime after regime, like I said, when we hired Poles, Eberflus, Getzey, what did I say at that time? Rookie GM, rookie head coach, first time offensive play caller. That's doomed to fail. Anyone with any kind of sense knows you don't bring in rookie, rookie, rookie. You want to bring in guys that have done it before, proven winners. And Jim Harbaugh is a proven quarterback developer, a proven winner at every level. That's the guy you hire, not these rookie, unproven guys. So you get what you hire, right?
Yeah. And
So
we'll move on to some of the other games because we could stay on this soapbox for a while. We
yeah,
had 11-5 Eagles at the 5-11 Giants. I thought the Eagles would pull this one off. They didn't really have anything to play for here. You picked the Giants here because the Eagles have just been so bad, and you were absolutely correct. Although I will say, on the season, I increased my lead to a 10-game lead, guys. So I kicked Alex's ass.
I think you're actually up 11
I thought, oh, okay, well, shit.
because
Okay.
we'll talk about it here. I picked the Chargers over the Chiefs, and I almost won that one.
Oh,
But
I forgot about that one. I thought we only had three. Oops. Okay.
yeah,
Up 11 on the
but
season, guys. So, I if any of you question my appearance as the co-host and my resume, I think kicking Alex's ass in my first season as co-host should help give me a bit of a boost in the fan ratings there. You can trust
well,
me.
no, you know your shit, and anyone that listens knows there's a pretty dramatic uptick in knowledge and IQ going just a year difference. But no need to shout out any names or nothing. But you're definitely an upgrade. So appreciate you coming on the show and kicking my ass in the regular season. But the playoffs are about to start, Amanda. I'm just warning you.
Oh, guys, we will make our brackets and compare them and let you know how we're doing in our brackets. But back to this Giants game. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, he was slinging it.
hmm
So, New York's defense was on point too. This was a great game for them. Giants pulled off a win 27-10. I mean, it was a solid effort in a meaningless game. The Eagles look like absolute garbage. It seems almost hopeless right now. They couldn't do anything right in the first half, either side of the ball. So, you know, the starters were pulled out before halftime, which was a great decision. They accepted defeat and kind of just let Eagles, let the fans know that like, hey, we're dysfunctional in this game. We're gonna just keep everybody safe. But man, what a mess.
It's pretty easy to pull your starters at halftime when you're already down 24-0.
Yep.
And Philly is an absolute mess. Like that's why I picked the Giants to win this one because the Eagles they've lost 5 of 6 now going into the playoffs, and they're not any good, and they haven't been any good for a while. And ever since they uh, made the switch at defensive coordinator to Matt Patricia, I mean, what have we seen in Matt Patricia of recent to have any faith in him? And the Eagles' defense has gotten worse. Uh, the offense is bad right now too, and I just don't see any reason to trust this Eagles team right now at all. I think this is best case scenario for Tampa Bay with the Eagles coming to town. Philly was the hottest team in football, and it seemed destined to be an Eagles Niners NFC Championship game. But you know, I don't see any hope. Like,
Yeah, over the last 6 weeks, that thought has completely fled.
yeah,
And we've got Jalen Hurts said his middle finger popped out during the game. They have some other injuries they're dealing with AJ Brown. I It's going to be a rough matchup in Tampa Bay.
well, and the biggest thing that I look to in these moments is the head coach and how does he handle it. And Nick Sirianni looks way over his head. He's like stammering in his press conferences. He doesn't seem to have any answers. That's very dangerous. You are what your head coach allows, and you are what your head coach, builds. And the team takes on the mindset of the head coach. And right now, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, AJ Brown, the team looks without leadership and without any answers. And
Mhm.
that's a very dangerous spot to be going into the playoffs. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if they get knocked out immediately in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, and their defense isn't doing anything to help them. Like it's one thing to have injured players on offense, but I mean, Tyrod Taylor against zone coverage, 21 of 26 for 245 yards. And
Yeah.
The Eagles were kind of talked about for having great zone coverage at the beginning of the season, and that has completely gone.
I mean, they've
Um,
got talent everywhere, but
yeah, but not cohesive and not coming together.
yeah,
Um, somewhat of a sad swan song over here. Saquon Barkley had a great season quietly for the Giants. Obviously, a 6-win team isn't going to be talked about much. But he finished the game with 2 rushing scores, and he seems to think it was his last game in New York. He spoke about it after the game, saying it was largely out of his control, and he doesn't think they're going to give him a contract worthy of that he thinks he's worth. So he might be out of there.
yeah. And if I think he has a ton of talent still left in the tank, and if I were running the Chicago Bears, I would bring Saquon Barkley in to put him in the backfield along with Justin Fields.
Hmm.
That would be a lot of fun to watch
That
right
would
there.
be
And
fun to
wherever
watch.
he goes, he's going to get signed and he's going to be a threat. As long as he can stay healthy, he's one of the best weapons in the at that position in the entire league. So,
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to another very unmatched game over here. We've got the 11-5 Cowboys at the 4-12 Commanders. I mean, obviously you were rooting for the Commanders in this one, right?
no, I mean, I wasn't paying much attention to this, only in the fact that will the Cowboys win and clinch the division? And they did so easily. This game was
Mhm.
never in doubt, 38-10. Uh, Sam Howell is terrible. Ron Rivera gets fired after the game. Um, Not a lot of answers with the Washington Commanders, and the Cowboys, are taking some positive momentum into the playoffs. A big win against the Lions, in which they didn't play their best football, and then a statement win here against a bad team. So, um, you know, good news for the Cowboys is the fact that they've been so good at home this year and so bad on the road. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago about how it's important for the Cowboys to get that home field. And they got it done with the Eagles' collapse. And now they're hosting a playoff game. You know, they're playing some of their best football right now. Maybe the Cowboys can go on a deep playoff run here. We'll see if Dak Prescott can lead them to it.
Well, obviously, I'm rooting against them in this wild card matchup. Go Green Bay. I don't have, the assuredness to say that Green Bay is going to pull off a win, but man, I would love to see it. We have a pretty solid record at that stadium.
Yeah, and I love the narrative. Mike McCarthy against his former team. That's
Yeah,
a lot of
those
fun
script
too.
writers this year are on point. Mike McCarthy
And what
versus, the team he
Al
coached for
Harris
13
too, right?
years. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And
So,
then, Dak Prescott, interestingly enough, halfway through the second quarter, Dallas was down in this game. They were down
hmm
10-7, and then Dak Prescott kind of woke up, completed 86% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, 440 yards, 31 first downs. CeeDee Lamb, insane again. All 13 of his targets. I mean, 100% on the game for him. So, the Cowboys didn't have a single punt in the game.
yeah, it's the Cowboys aren't perfect by any means. They're beatable. Green Bay can steal that game, but Dallas is also they have a lot of explosiveness on offense, and they've got a defense that can make plays. Deron Bland finishes the season with 9 interceptions, leads the NFL with that. Micah Parsons is an absolute game wrecker. And a name that gets lost and forgot, two of them, is Demarcus Lawrence on that D line and Stephon Gilmore opposite Deron Bland. So the Cowboys have a ton of talent. If they can get click at the right time and get that all going, there's no reason the Cowboys can't go on a deep playoff run and even go to an NFC championship game. So Green Bay Dallas is going to be all eyes on it, but I think Cowboys have enough to that they should win it. But it's going to be interesting for sure. They better show up and play their best brand of football, what they're capable of, because if they play like they did against the Lions, Green Bay can sneak in there and potentially steal it.
Well, for the record, Green Bay has never lost at AT&T Stadium,
Yeah.
ever in history.
So
Like they
I
played a
mean,
Super Bowl there that they won. Like that stadium is Green Bay home field advantage. I know, Dallas has been playing well at home this year, but that's, Lambeau South. So we'll see if that holds over to this team because they haven't been there yet with the youngins. But I mean, that team has been comfortable there.
yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. And I mean, there's pressure on the Cowboys. Like of all seasons, of all years, to go on a deep playoff run, this is the year. Everything has fallen in their favor, and they need to take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Cowboys kind of this needs to be their year. Like they're gonna
Yeah.
run out of time. Like it's everything's working. Like if Dallas doesn't do it this year, I don't know what it's gonna happen because they've gotten close and choked so many other times. Um, but I wonder if that's almost too much pressure. Like the Packers are just having fun right now. They're young. They've got, 5+ years left of time to put in. Like they're just having fun and clicking and doing their thing. So. I wonder if the pressure is going to get to Dallas. I hope the pressure gets to Dallas.
Yeah, I look at the Packers very similarly to the Texans, kind of like they're too young, they shouldn't be here, but they're having fun, and who knows, right? And
Yeah,
uh, two
100%.
very interesting stories to keep an eye on.
Hmm.
Let's see here. Let's talk real quick. Broncos Raiders. Not a lot to talk about here. The Raiders finish on a strong note for Antonio Pierce. Uh, Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders get the win over Jarrett Stidham and the Broncos. Not a lot to talk about here. We'll see what the Broncos do this offseason at quarterback because that's wide open. They could go so many different directions. And then what happens with the Raiders at head coach? The Raiders are rumored to be interested in Jim Harbaugh. But if I were the Raiders, I would keep Antonio Pierce.
Hmm. The
So,
players want him. Devontae Adams wants to stay if he stays. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, keep him. Like he clearly proved himself. I was worried he would lose this one and he would end the season with a 4-5 record and having that loss to the Vikings that was 3-0 on his scoreboard,
Mhm.
but he had a winning record, which, you know, sorry.
You're getting emotional about it. Is what's
No,
happening.
I came back from Colorado after the dry air with a bit of like a chest thing and running the heat here because it's been cold out. My lungs are kind of grumpy, but yeah, I hope Antonio Pierce stays. He's proven that he is worthy of a starting coaching job, and
Yeah.
I think there will be outrage on that team if they don't.
Yeah, and both teams, the Raiders and the Broncos, need to upgrade their quarterback position. Jarrett Stidham and Aiden O'Connell are both good backups, but let's get some starters in here at quarterback. And that's about all I have to say on that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm going to talk Seattle Cardinals. Again, not a lot to talk about here. Um, Seattle had a great game. It was back and forth. Seattle had a very slim shot at the playoffs. Obviously, Green Bay kind of scrapped that, and nothing makes a Green Bay fan feel better than stopping Seattle from making it to the postseason. Still holding a grudge since 2015 when they had that amazing comeback and knocked us out of the NFC Championship game just to go on and lose in the Super Bowl. Like, come on, if you're gonna go, at least fucking win. Nah. So not a ton to talk about here. Geno Smith had a couple beautiful plays. Cardinals came up short, but they were supposed to be the worst team in the NFL, and they, had really turned their season around at the end when Kyler Murray came back.
yeah,
So
the Cardinals are the scrappiest and hardest fighting bad team in the NFL in the second half of the season. The addition of Kyler Murray, James Conner is a hard running back, and they just make life difficult. They got weapons, to get the ball to, so they make it difficult. If you don't play your best brand of football, they'll sneak up and steal a win from you. But to me, what I was disappointed in is Week 17, the Seahawks losing a home game to the Steelers and
yeah.
Mason Rudolph. If you win that, then the Seahawks go on a 4-game winning streak and get into the playoffs. But not getting that done uh, cost them a playoff trip. And, you have to take advantage and win the games you're supposed to late in the season. And they couldn't get it done. So we'll see. The Seahawks are in an interesting spot because what do you do? Like they're very talented. Are you going to upgrade the quarterback position? We both like Geno Smith. Kenneth Walker is a beast. They have weapons at receiver. Maybe boost the O line. I don't know, but they're too talented to be missing the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting here is Carroll has hinted at, being at the sunset of his career and considering that it's time for retirement. So, Pete Carroll's supposed to meet with their GM John Schneider and club chair Jody Allen in the next couple weeks or couple of days, and there might be an announcement coming down about their head coach. So
I
it'll
think
be
I saw
interesting.
I think I saw today he said that he's coming back for one more year.
Okay. I saw that he
So
was rumored to come back, but I wasn't sure if missed it if that he officially said he was coming back.
I think so. I can't say 100% for sure, but
Okay.
I think that he said he's coming back.
Okay.
So,
Well, I might have missed that announcement. My bad, guys.
but I mean, either way, it is getting to that point in his career of every year is going to be a question mark, much like Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean he's
And
74. He's done
yeah,
plenty in his career. Like he's earned retirement whenever he chooses to. It is well earned.
yeah. Do you think? I mean, so let's say Pete Carroll wants to go out with a championship, right? Do you think it would make sense for the Seahawks to look to upgrade the quarterback position, or do you think that? I mean, because I don't think that I like Geno Smith. He's a good quarterback. But with all that talent on that offense, man, if you could get someone a little bit better, you could go to a Super Bowl. I don't think Geno Smith is going to take anyone to a Super Bowl. Do you agree with me, or how do you see that?
I agree with you, but who are they gonna get? Like if we got to pick in the middle of the draft,
You'd have to make a splash trade. You'd have to
yeah,
go get
like are they
someone
gonna
like
go get
Kirk
Kirk Cousins?
Cousins,
Jinx.
or yeah, let's bring back Russell Wilson. I mean, shit, like they
Well, I
should
mean
have
he's
kept Russ.
available.
They should have kept Russ as a bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll
But
be interesting to see because I mean I like Gino, but I don't think on that team. I think that team is the team that needs a quarterback who's gonna, like Jalen Hurts it or Josh Allen it and like carry the team. I think
yeah,
do I
what
think
about Justin Fields? Maybe.
hmm, do I think Geno Smith could go to a Super Bowl on the 49ers? Yes, because the team is built to kind of just plug somebody into that role.
Yeah,
But I think Seattle needs more than that from their quarterback, and I don't think Geno's quite there. He's not an
and,
elite quarterback, and that's what that team needs.
and maybe Seattle should retool the defense a little bit. There's so much talent on that defense, and they don't always play like it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. Real quick, Rams Niners. Uh, Rams find a way to win 21-20 as Carson Wentz beats Sam Darnold. Not a lot to talk about here except for the fact that the Rams, clinched the sixth seed and will play the Lions in the playoffs. So that'll be cool. The Niners have the one seed clinched, so they have a first round bye. Um, really just looking forward to the playoffs here. Rams Lions is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was funny because I had originally picked the Rams, and then on the podcast talked myself into the Niners. But I mean, I'm so glad the Rams won because this is the matchup everybody wanted. Like we wanted
Mm-hmm.
Stafford at Detroit. And with the way the Rams have been playing, they've been playing pretty good football lately. One area that they should be concerned, their special teams have been a mess. I mean, Chase Blackburn has come under fire for how special teams have performed throughout the season. Sunday was not an improvement. I mean, Brett Maher missed an extra point. He raised their missed kick total to 16 on the season. Their punter, Ethan Evans, had two good punts, but he's been pretty shaky throughout the season. They've allowed nearly 500 punt return yards on the season, two touchdowns on punt returns. I mean, it cost them the game against the Ravens in overtime. Remember that beautiful overtime punt return for a touchdown? That
Yeah.
was against the Rams. I mean, their special teams might come back to bite them in the ass because they have not improved on these issues throughout the season. And I don't know if they're sticking with their kickers that they currently have or if they're going to make a change moving forward, but it's definitely an area of concern.
I have a feeling too. Rams, Lions, Dan Campbell against Sean McVay. McVay's pretty aggressive too. I think that's going to be the aggressive bowl. Like there
Mhm.
might not be any punts, there might
No
not
punts,
be any
turnovers
field
and
goals.
downs. Yep.
Yeah, just going for it constantly, or some fake punts and different stuff like that. But it's a great matchup all the way around. And to me, I can't wait for this one. I'm wanting to make picks on this right now, and I know we got to wait until Thursday night. But
Oh, quick shout out. Puka Nacua. They left him in the game long enough to set the NFL record for most receiving yards by a rookie in NFL history.
Mhm.
So that was amazing. He beat Bill Groman, who had 1,473 yards in 1960. So also the most receptions by a rookie in NFL history as well. And it was amazing to see him hit those numbers because he absolutely earned it. He's been insanely good. And completely surprised a lot of people who didn't really love him in the draft. Some people didn't have him ranked in the top 10 for receivers, and I'm proud of the kid.
Yeah, I mean the Rams just find a way to make these guys into superstars. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Demarcus Robinson's been balling out this year. Kyron Williams. None of these guys have been super household names, but they just keep getting it done. So
Is it the Rams or is it Matt Stafford? Matt
it
Stafford has thrown to most of the record-holding receivers.
it's McVay is some of it, and some of it's Stafford as well. I mean Stafford's good. You know,
What did Lions fans call him? Pad Statford when he was in Detroit because he put up numbers but lose games.
Stat Padford.
Stat Padford, there we go. Sorry, it's late.
Yeah.
My bad.
I don't
So
know if Lions fans call him that. I think the haters called him that, but
yeah. I mean, didn't the Lions fans hate him because they still had losing seasons, even with all the numbers they would put up?
no, Lions fans loved him. Lions fans were borderline Rams fans and when they won the Super Bowl, like, and that's
Yeah, that's
why
fair.
it's awkward now because they love Stafford and here he comes to steal all their joy.
You know, we've done that a lot in the NFC North where, people have left and gone to other teams and you're like, I don't want to root for you, but I love you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get
like
that.
Brett Favre coming back into Lambeau wearing purple.
Oh, no, no, no. We pretend that didn't happen. No, I didn't mean
No,
that situation.
that definitely happened, and I was loving
I
it.
was talking about Jared Allen, but all right. You gotta go for my soul on that one. Let's move on to the Chiefs at Chargers, which I absolutely forgot that you picked wrong. So thank you for cheering me up with that. Chris
I was so
Jones,
close to being right, though. I think I should get half a point for
because it's a 1 point game.
yeah,
Okay, if you
and
get half a point for that, then you lose an extra 10 game situation for picking the Broncos over Miami when they lost by 50. Okay.
no, I'm
So
not worried. I'm not worried about the regular season. I'm coming for the playoffs. That's all I care about at this point.
uh-huh, okay. All right. So we already talked about Chris Jones in this one, getting his important sack there. I mean, the Chiefs won 13-12. It was not an exciting game at all. Um, Austin
Yeah.
Eckler might be saying goodbye to LA, and he didn't even have a great game here.
Hmm.
So, free agency will be interesting. He had 11 yards and 10 carries.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
38 yards on 7 catches. It was a rough game for him. I mean, two-time NFL scrimmage leader. He finished with, an okay season, but this game was not his game. He missed the Pro Bowl and most of his added incentives this season. So hopefully he
Yeah. And
gets some money in the offseason.
he's one of those guys that's very reliant on the star quarterback playing. Like, once Herbert gets hurt or is playing through injury, then he's not nearly as effective. And but he's very talented, and he'll get picked up somewhere and be a threat for sure. He's a great pass catching running back. He's a ex- explosive home run threat. But this game was not worth anyone's attention. I didn't watch a second of this game.
Nope.
Blaine Gabbert versus Easton Stick. I mean, the reason I picked the Chargers, I don't trust Easton Stick or anything LA. But the reason I said Blaine Gabbert is getting the start, so let me pick against him.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was a very fair pick. I did not give a crap
yeah.
about this game. I had nothing in this game. Um, I will say the Chiefs have now won 11 plus games for 6 years in a row, which is the
Hmm.
third longest streak in NFL history. So that's about the only thing newsworthy of this game. You want to move on to Sunday night?
Yeah, let's roll that into Sunday night. And this was the game of the weekend. Uh, a playoff game, pretty much an opportunity for the Bills, who everyone, a lot of people had left for dead at 5-5, and thought this was the year the Bills are going to miss the playoffs. They weren't playing good football, and they got hot at the right time. If you guys remember our preseason Bills season preview, we talked with Andre Reed about this and asked him, how do you play your best football at the right time of year? And that's exactly what these Bills are doing as they win their fifth straight game and beat the Dolphins in Miami to steal the AFC East and go from, if they lost this, what? They were out of the playoffs. And, or no, because the Jags lost, the Bills would have been the 7th seed, I believe. But because they won this, they get the 2 seed and have a home playoff game in Buffalo. I mean, a huge win for the Bills here in Miami. And the Bills are hitting their stride. 5-game winning streak going into the playoffs with home field. They have to be feeling hella confident, right?
Yeah, I mean, 2 months ago, a lot of people had the Bills missing the playoffs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the most impressive late season turnarounds we've ever seen. I mean, they were 6-6, mid-season drama, controversy. They, falling in overtime in Philadelphia in November. 5 straight wins to close out the season. I mean, Andre Reed had it dead right. Like that is the right time to heat up and the perfect way to do it. I mean, they host the Steelers next weekend. We had the full Josh Allen experience in this game too, which is funny too because he's a quarterback who can play make these amazing plays, these beautiful throws, run when he needs to, and also throw some heinous picks. And
Mm-hmm.
we got to see both.
Yeah,
And, 2 interceptions in the first half.
some bad ones too. But
Bad, bad
the
ones.
thing that's encouraging to me is that he turned the ball over 3 times and they still won a massive game.
Mm.
And if he cleans those turnovers up in the playoffs, they're an absolute threat to beat anybody. Like the Bills this year, more than any year in the past, I believe can go to the Super Bowl. Maybe since what year was it when they were playing the Chiefs? You know, and blew that with 13 seconds. But they're as much of a contender this year as then, and um, James Cook has been a huge addition. How about Khalil Shakir in this game, right?
So good. I was jumping up and down and screaming at this game. Like you would have thought it was the Packers game.
And
It was, I mean,
I
beautiful.
loved it for the simple fact that I kind of called this Dolphins collapse a little bit, and it's only a 2-game losing streak, but I do not have any faith in this Dolphins team. They got their doors blown off by the Ravens, and then
Mhm.
they lose this one. And how about the biggest story here is what happened to the Dolphins? And all season long, this was the Dolphins' division to lose. They were the favorites. They had this thing wrapped up. The Bills might not even make the playoffs. Miami throws up 70 on the Broncos. They've got, MVP candidates Tua, Tyreek, these great running backs, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and they blow it.
Mhm.
And now instead of playing in sunny Miami, the Dolphins are going to have to go to Arrowhead to take on the defending champs in what is expected to be single-digit weather.
Yeah. It's gonna be a rough matchup. And we, I tried to defend Miami and their, loss without Mostert and Waddle. And I said, well, they had some injuries. And you said, yeah, but now is the time to, do next man up. Like you've had a week to make up for their absences. You knew they were already missing this week. It wasn't like
Yeah.
they were last minute scratches before the game. Like you knew what you were working with and you still got your butts kicked. Like, I mean, Tyreek Hill saw 13 of Tua's 27 targets.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, it was predictable. Nothing about this play calling was interesting or shocking. There was, I mean, there was no dominance. There was no drive, there was no zest. Like it was just lackluster. And I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it the Dolphins are undermanned, but they've had time to address those issues and they haven't done anything about it.
Well,
And that's on them, and I just don't see that getting any better at this point.
yeah, and they have the talent. They're not lacking in talent. I know it sucks that they lost some guys on defense. They lost their leading sack guy in Bradley Chubb, but they've got talent, and that's not the reason that they're doing this. And to me, it goes back to the head coach. And I've been saying this all since he got hired that I'm not a Mike McDaniel fan. He's at the end of the day, the media loves him because he's quirky and he's weird and he says weird stuff and they just get a kick out of it. They laugh at everything he does and says, and I don't get it. I'm not enamored with his weirdness.
He's like the class
And
clown of NFL coaches.
yeah, and when you're winning, when you're dropping 70 on people, then they love it. But when it's time to show up against John Harbaugh and the Ravens, against Sean McDermott and the Bills, against Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and now Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I have zero faith in Mike McDaniel in that game. None. And he's the offensive play caller. And like you said, no imagination, nothing that scared the Bills defense really. And uh, I just don't trust him at the end of the day. And so going to Arrowhead against the Chiefs, I mean, to me, this is not going to be close. To me, the Chiefs are going to kick their ass.
Yeah, and the Chiefs have been having a collapse as well. So it's interesting to see these two collapsed teams. I mean, this is 15 straight seasons without a division title for Miami. And
Mm-hmm.
it's funny too, because we've talked about all the good storylines about this wild card weekend coming up. So we get Tyreek Hill back at Arrowhead Stadium for the first time
Yeah,
since he was traded away from them.
yeah,
So
that's going
like
to be fire.
if you were, into the script writing and the NFL being a conspiracy, then this is your year, man, because some of these stories are pretty suspicious if you're into that storyline. But I mean, the final interception by Tua at the end of the game was
Yep,
completely predictable.
yep.
Like
Terrible.
you, I mean, Tyreek Hill for 7 yards, Smith for 6 yards, like incomplete, intercepted. Like I could have predicted every single play in that final possession.
Deep ball into double coverage.
It would, and we saw that all game.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised there weren't more picks in this game, honestly. Like
And as much as I don't trust Mike McDaniel, I've been hesitant to say it because I like him. I don't really trust Tua in these big moments either.
I mean, he started the game with an interception and ended the game with an interception. Like
Yeah.
it's just I don't trust him. I've never really seen it. Like he's never been
Y-
a quarterback that I would trust or would want on my team. I just don't see the allure.
Yeah. And and it's got to be so disheartening as a Dolphins fan to feel like you're going to break that streak. What? They haven't been a division champ since how long?
15 years.
Yeah, and this was the year. And they choked, not only losing to the Bills, but they had a statement game where they could have been the 1 seed in the AFC and got obliterated by the Ravens and bullied, not even close. And then at home with a chance to seal the championship, the division championship against Buffalo, and Josh Allen with 3 turnovers, and you still can't get it done. And the Dolphins are reeling right now, and it's not going to get any easier in a cold ass Arrowhead Stadium with that crowd, right? So, I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll get more into our predictions for those matchups on the next one. Sorry this one was so long, guys, but so many storylines to cover here, and we're just excited for the upcoming weekend of football, and I know you guys are too. I would love to hear some of your picks for this coming wild card weekend, though, for sure.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what you think and follow along all playoffs long and stay tuned because the interviews are coming. There's going to be a lot of big name interviews on this entire playoffs. We always go hard for the playoffs. We've got an interview coming up on Thursday, and then we're gonna have Pablo back on to do our wild card preview. And Pablo's probably going to be coming on all playoffs long. So stay tuned. Tons of content coming up through the playoffs. This is our favorite time of the year. And this is where I know Amanda kicked my ass in the picks all season long, but the playoffs are here. It's time for the real Alex to show up. So, but
Mm.
Amanda's really good too. So it's going to be fun to see who takes home the playoffs.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I feel like we're going to disagree less during the postseason because we've, finally seen who these teams are. So we're going to
Well,
have
and
some.
I'm banking on you're going to pick the Packers to win the Super Bowl, so that's going to be an easy W for me.
No, I've
Um,
I've got them out long before the Super Bowl.
well, now you're just a Packers hater if you're going to say that.
I mean, maybe I'm picking, Bills Lions. You don't know.
Well, if you're picking the Lions in the Super Bowl, then I'm going to win anyway. So
But we will post our brackets as the season starts, winding
yeah.
down. After the wild card weekend, I think we'll post our brackets and go over them.
Well, yeah, and we'll update it every week as we go
Yeah.
as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. So much good football. And thanks, Amanda, for coming on all season long. The insight, the analysis, the picks, all of it has been spectacular. And a lot of great episodes left to come. So stay tuned, everyone. And appreciate the support all season long. Peace out.